This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, very good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome back. So last session we were discussing about how do we write the Terraform code for so the network component, right? So once we have the network network piece in place, then okay, so we can talk about the remaining components. Okay, so the remaining components are, so if you just take a look here, so and you go to 3. Here it is. So once you set up the network, so these are the different components which we are going to set it up. Okay. So, and I want to categorize this into, this load balancer creation, which is a public load balancer creation, and the front end and the back end load balancer creation. I want to logically group them into one Terraform code. Okay. So that's what I wanted to do here. All right, arrange. Okay, so this is one, okay, one set I want to work on, and the other okay, this is one piece of code, and everything is a separate piece of code. Like, catalog is a separate piece of code, and okay, so, and auto scaling is cart is a separate auto scaling group, it's a separate piece of code. So Terraform side, okay, so I want to group these two things in separate, or even if I want to make it also separate also is fine. Okay, only front end I can make it as so one piece of code, and the other two load balancers I'll make it in one piece of code. Anything is your choice. Okay, how do you group them is your liberty. Okay, you are the person which you are going to make the code, and it is your choice. Okay, how do you prefer to group your code? Okay, and that also logically should be relating to your technical requirements as well, right? So you cannot just group whatever the way you want. Okay, so typically you need to understand the project in a better way. So grouping the resources is something is a better way. And also I mentioned, so we try to make the code as much as small as possible. So that's where let's cut it into much smaller pieces. So we are actually going to make these two load balancers. One is internal load balancer and the another one is external load balancer. So we'll keep it in one piece of code, and auto scaling of front end and auto scaling of card, catalog, and everything, I can keep it in a separate one. Okay, so anything is okay. All right, so first we are going to talk about how do we set up these particular auto scaling group components today. Okay, so how do we set it up? All right, so let's go and talk about them. And for that, so just let me go to the Azure DevOps. And I'll go to repos, and so create a new repository, and I'll say that this is a Terraform for front end. Okay, so front end Terraform, click on create, and yeah, so I will just try to make this code. Let me clone this into my local desktop, and right, I think we can just make the code here. Okay. So the code structure, the backend and the environment should be same. So I'm copying them as is. So here, please put it here, and here it is. Put it here, and we require makefile as is. I will keep it here, and we require provider.tf also as is. We'll keep it here, and we require state.tf also as is. Keep it here. The rest of the things we are going to make accordingly. Okay, so this is to make what? This is to make a front end, right? So this is to make front end, and all these particular components, if you see here, there is some certain common things. Okay, all these falls under one autoscaling, not one autoscaling group. All this actually is creating one autoscaling group. So that means, you know, so can I keep my code dry? So it's actually creating an autoscaling group. To the autoscaling group, I need to tell that, you know, I'm creating for catalog, I'm creating for card, I'm creating for user. Okay, so I can parameterize and tell to that, right? So if I just do that, then automatically it should create. Okay, so I want to decouple the code rather than actually making everything in one place. I want to make it decoupling the code, and that's where I want to create another module. I want to create another module. So how do I make another module is, so here I'll go to the, again, is Terraform. So I will say that, you know, create a new repository. So this, I'll say that Terraform, this is for ASG. Okay, Terraform for autoscaling group. Okay, so I will just use this first code also. All right, and space clone. So now I'm entering into the module. So this is a separate Git repository, and you remember module sources. I already shown you what all the different sources you can make the module. Module sources Terraform, and if you just give this, and you have an option of specifying a generic Git repository, isn't it? So generic Git is which you have. So which I'm going to say like this. So in my front end, so what I'm going to say is this is to create autoscaling group and all. So I will say asg.tf. So here is a module, but this is not my mod. This is actually given as a such link. And no, I can use HTTPS link. I'll just prefer this. Okay, so this is a module ASG or something. Now Git, you have to give the URL. Okay, so what is the URL? You can get it from here. Okay, so you get it from here. So this is the this one. That's it. I'm calling this particular one, and that particular module will be called, and you'll be doing the work. Okay, so for temporary, okay, what I wanted to do here is I just wanted to go and create a very simple file. So which is, I mean, create a very simple thing. So I will say that output, okay, output.tf, like let's say file output.tf something. Okay, so here I'm going to say that output, like let's say sample, and I will say hello world. Nothing. I just want to make one. Sample, and it's actually sending hello world. And now what actually this module is actually going to send you is it's going to send you one so sample. So that's where I will also go to here output, and I'll say sample. Now actually the output is coming from the module. So module dot asg dot sample is actually giving sample. Okay, so let me push this code and let me run this. Let me run this particular one. Okay, so here how I'm running. Yesterday we already talked about these releases, Azure DevOps releases a little bit. So we are actually going to run again this particular one. And so here actually VPC creation is happening, and destroy is also happening in parallel. So this, let me just do the remove the auto trigger for deployment for deletion. For deleting the VPC, I created one pipeline. So I'll just delete that. And which one is a failure? Destroy is a failure. That's okay. So VPC creation is going on. let it go through. Okay, so not a big deal. And so now here in the meantime, so what I wanted to do here is I wanted to create create a new release pipeline, and I want to say that this is an empty job over here, and this I'm going to call it as front end, right? Yeah. And where your code is residing, in order to run Terraform, your code should be coming through some source, that's artifact. And the artifact is Azure repos directly. I can choose the code, and you can go with the DevOps B 53, my code actually sitting here. And so the code is Terraform front end. It's actually like a main, and add it. Okay, done. Now you come to the front end, and front end should be saying that, so we'd be choosing the Ubuntu version. Okay, and after that, so we'll go with installing Terraform. So I will say Terraform, and then add no, this Terraform tool. So Terraform tool installer, yeah, add. And what version we're actually going to go with is 14.3 is the latest version. I'll go with latest version. And after that, so I would like to go with running some shell commands. I think rather than doing all these, actually better if you can, clone the existing one. Okay, so let me delete this. So there's a lot of, so variables we need, not a lot of actually, there are variables actually which need to be set up and all. I will just go with a clone of this one. Everything comes as is. Okay, so that I'll say that, so this is front end. Okay, so okay, and so this is not the this one, and I'll go to add should repos. Okay, add and dev. So yeah, so basically it's a dev environment. Yeah, that's fine. And you go inside this now, and Terraform apply. Actually, it is actually running inside wrong code, so old code. So I'll just update this. Should run in the front end. Okay, that's it. That's the only thing you have to make it, and just click on save. So this is a front end pipeline. If I just click on create release, what we're expecting is a hello world output, but that output is actually coming from a module. Okay, isn't it? So it's actually coming from a module. So let's see that. So you see this initializing modules. It's actually initializing the modules. Here it is. I think it's gonna work. No issues now. Let it do. Why it is doing? My bad. So actually, actually front end side we didn't modify all this. So D53 is actually still under VPC. So it's actually going to be under front end. Okay. So prod.tfs also it should go under front end. Okay. And the same way now here also dev.tfs. So it's actually dev.tfs is fine. But yeah, so this is still referring the VPC state file. That's where it's actually destructing everything and creating the hello world. Yeah, copy paste issues will be there. So now if you see this, I'm expecting some output at least, and the output you're going to get so sample is equal to hello world. So how are you getting this? So you're getting this by another modules. In the module side, actually you're defining this particular one. So here in the so ASG module, you're actually putting one output. You're actually collecting to the front end, and you're actually printing it here. So and it is working fine, right? So that means this module, whatever you're calling, is working. Okay, that's what you need to understand. Now inside the ASG, I'm going to really create an auto scaling group now. Okay, so how do I create a real auto scaling group over here? So here ASG.df. Okay, so in order to create an auto scaling group, so earlier also we had done what? So if I go into the auto scaling group, so before auto scaling group, so what I did it was I created a launch template, isn't it? So here launch group. In order to do this, so what we did was create an auto scaling group. Okay, and you're actually choosing the launch template, isn't it? So that's where I want to first go and create a launch template. Okay, now we are new to the code, we don't know anything in the Terraform. You don't need to really, right? So that's the documentation provided from the vendor side. So I'll go to registry.terraform.io. Okay, and here I'll go to the browse providers. And then launch template, right? So let's search for template. Yeah, here as you have. So AWS launch template. So you're going to take this template and you're going to make it whatever you're needed for it. Okay. So yeah, now you have code here, so which is fine. So you can take the sample code and you can copy and do that, or else what you can do is you can go to the anyhow the UI. See, it's up to you. How do you approach? Your approach is your choice. Okay, so either you take some code which is already there and modify it, or you already know the manual process, so from there you can build up your own code, is also your choice. There is no thumb rule that you should only do this. Okay, it's your comfort, your flexibility. How do you make it is your choice. Okay, there can be a multiple ways. So some people like certain ways, and your choice. Now I can go for a create a launch template. So first thing you require is launch template. I already familiar with this particular one, so that's where I'll just so choose the options which is around here. So now what I know is actually, so you have something called as AWS underscore launch underscore template is the one which you have. Okay, I will just use this. Okay, so resource AWS underscore launch underscore template. Yeah, so first thing, and this is an ASG. All right. So what is the first thing you require? Name. Okay, so here name is there, name keyword is already there, or you can start referring the arguments which you have here already. Okay, so the name is equal to, so the name is what? So this is a common module, right? You should not hardcode the value. So you should go in a very generic way. So that's where I will just say that, so where variables var.ef. var.ef. And over here, I'm going to take a variable. Variable, what I'll say is a component. Okay, so there's a component. All right. So then how do you do that here is, it's actually going to be $var.component. Okay. Now again, so we are also going to send some information about environment. Okay. So variable environment. So or else I'll put it all component. Okay, env. So, and again, I already told you in the shell scripting, so some people always use as capital letters, some people use as camel case. Okay, so that all depends upon from what background they are coming from. Okay, so since I'm from Linux background, so I know that in Linux every variable mostly will be under capital letters. I will just put in capital letters, so there is nothing wrong in that, and there's nothing right in that. Okay, it's your comfort again. So here env. All right, so var.component and var.env is what you're doing. Okay, that means front end, if I pass front end hyphen dev. Okay, Then how do I pass the information here? So I need to pass the information here as component is equal to front end. Okay, component equal to front end. Or if you don't want to put it even here, and if you want to take it under here, so I am okay. So component is equal to front end. Okay, now all these variables should be coming up here. So I will say file var.df and var variable component and variable env and what else, variable project, right? Okay, project. Okay, so these are the things which you have. I think VPC CIDR is not needed in front end. We copied it from VPC. That is fine. So you have project underscore name. It's not even project. It's project underscore name. All right. And now here to the auto scaling group. So what I can do, I can just make it as var dot component. Okay. So env is equal to var dot env. Okay. And yeah. So that is what you are passing, and this module will read those particular values, and you will be getting it here. Okay, first thing is done. Your so auto scaling group name is what is being defined. Okay, what next? What next is, let's check it out from the UI. Okay, so what next is needed? A template, so version description. So template version description is really needed. I don't think so even. Okay, I don't think so. It's actually might be optional. Okay, so even while creating the launch template also, we never gave this. It automatically picking it up. Okay, fine. So that's it. We did it, and you require an image basically. So you require an AMI. Okay, so the AMI is important one. So the AMI, how can I find it out? So AMI I can find it out by using data. Okay, so data, I'll be having an AMI. All right. So here I'm going to take one simple one. So which is, I think I already shown you how to get the data, right? So yeah, here it is. And here data.df, and here it is. Just so that it's fine. And so here it is. You get the AMI on this, and ASG. Sorry, AMI, right? So how do I provide the AMI? So we know we need AMI, and if you look into the AMI, or you can look at the example also. So image underscore ID. All right, so image underscore ID directly we have, so we can view image underscore ID. So what is the image ID now? So the image ID is data dot AMI dot ID. Okay, so this is the one. All right, and so the next thing is instance type, of course. So I need to give the instance type. So I need to provide instance type. How can I provide instance type here? Instance underscore type is there. All right. So now I'll just say that instance underscore type. So which type of instance need to be created? So yeah, it depends basically. For lower environments like dev and QA environments, so you probably keep the small instances. For production environments, you kind of keep a bigger instances. Okay, so that's the idea. So probably I want to prefer that from the environment side. Okay, so that's where I will say here is you probably go with so instance underscore type is equal to, like, let's say t3 dot micro I'm giving. Okay, so this variable I should be taking it from here, declaring a variable here inside my main code, and I'll be sending this information as to here as instance type is equal to so var dot instance type. Okay, so you're doing this, and again the same variable you should be collecting it from here. So that's where I have to specify this also here. And finally, you're going to say that instance type is equal to var dot instance type. You're understanding how I'm passing the data from one place to another place, from the root module to another module, right? So actually you're putting the TFS. From TFS, it loads by the root module, and the root module is actually sending the information to the sub module, and module is actually collecting the information, and it is using the information. Okay, so yeah, variable management is a little bit pain in Terraform. Okay, agreed, but we don't have any choice actually here. Okay, so and the next one. So require image ID and a key pair. Key pair, we are not doing anything, so we don't actually do this. You can ignore that. And so the network settings, basically, I am not. It's actually simply a VPC. That's fine. And so okay, so security group also you can choose, or you can ignore that. That's fine. And I think that's it. Okay, so you don't require anything else, but give a try. Okay, let's this much. It's gonna create a launch template or not. Let's go and see it out. Okay, so let me push this code all, and I'll come to the front end. So let's see whether the launch template is actually created and or not. So we'll go with step by step only. So first we are creating a template. We'll test it out whether it is really working or not. Create it.
Can you show once more how you're using the variables and interlinking the variables in the module?
So we are actually, so sending the information here, right? So here in the ASG, so you are putting component, right? So and the same value I'm actually using here, variable component. So that how that value, whatever is coming here, will be loaded into this particular variable. So let me show you in another way. So view horizontally. Yeah. So now if you go for here, so this is the module. Okay, so the modules are the main one, so which are actually sending, and yeah, so over here you can see this. You're actually calling this particular module, and you're sending the component is equal to that this one, and so that particular one is actually getting that information as a var.component. So whatever is a var.component in the main one, so it will be picking up that one. So here also it is empty, and ultimately it is picking from dev.tfs, because in the make file we have already passed dev apply you're giving. So you are saying that you pick the dev.tfs file, isn't it? So we're picking the dev.tfs file, and that particular dev.tfs file, like component whatever is there, will load it here, and this is actually being so passed to the module. and so module is actually picking it, and finally you're consuming it on the ASG side. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of practice, I think.
Yeah. Little hands-on, you'll be able to. One second. All right, so we created this particular auto scaling group. So whether that is actually working or not working, so we will just go and take a look. Okay, so let's see this, and here let's go to the this one. So click on cancel, and there is so frontend -dev. This is coming up, right? So frontend -sample is a manual one. Then delete template. Okay, so here frontend -dev is there. All right, so yeah, and so now using this, can we make the auto scaling group or not? So whether okay, launch template is created, but this is really working. Okay, whether this is really working or not working, we can okay, we can test it out only with the auto scaling group. So we'll go and support the auto scaling group. All right, so yeah, so let's go and see the auto scaling group. So for auto scaling group, we also don't know that so how to make it. So that's where we'll find out from the documentation. So here I think somewhere in the auto scaling you'll find it out. So what you want to make is auto scaling group. So I'll go with the auto scaling group. All right. So the auto scaling group is some example is already given here. So I will just pick it up and modify accordingly. It's up to you how do you make that. So here it is, and so the name also, I would say that this is a template. This is a template, and the same way I would choose -ASG auto scaling group, and maximum number of instances is 1, minimum number of instances also I will go to 1 only. Okay, so the health check grace period, which I don't want it because I don't want to put the load balancer at this point of time, and the desired capacity is also 1, and forced delete. So what this forced delete does, I don't know. So let's read a little bit documentation, whether to use it or we don't need to use it, we'll come to know. And so here come bit down. So force_delete optional. This is saying that it's an optional. Allows deleting the auto scaling group without waiting for all the instances in the pool to terminate. Yeah, I think I can go for this. So it becomes destroy, it becomes faster. And the placement group, I don't want it. You can ignore this. And now launch configuration. Are we using launch configuration? No, we are not using launch configuration. We are using launch template. Okay, you are using launch template. Launch template. Okay, so launch template is something. Okay, launch template is something we need to make it. So I'll go to the launch template. So here you'll find our launch template section. If you just come to launch template, so you have to give the launch template something. Okay, so you have to give ID, launch template ID. Okay, so either conflicts with name, it is telling. So that means if you give name, you don't give to ID. If you give ID, you don't give name. Okay, no need to give both basically. So that's where ID. Where is ID? So we already have this resource created. AWS_launch template dot sg.id. Okay, so this is what you have. And VPC zone identifier, I don't give this, what happens, let's see. And this initial, so this also is not needed, and this is also not needed, target ARNs. So tags also I'll kind of not really needed. For time being, I just want to run this much and see how it's gonna behave. Okay, whether it creates or it fails, or all the options, whatever is given, is really needed or not. Let's see. And also the very important thing I want to make it up here is the version I want to pick it up always is the latest version. Okay, so that's where I am going to specify version. Always I want to go with the latest one only, $latest or something, right? So here is the value they are giving. So I just pick it up. Okay, so yeah, cool. And I'll go here and I'll just make a release once again. So some change I made it, release. So using that auto scaling launch template, auto scaling group is really getting created or not getting created. So something is a failure. So what is the failure? Let's take a look. Is the error? Yeah. So at least one availability zone VPC or VPC subnet is required. Yeah. Now you see this. What it is asking, you should use one subnet at least. All right. So that's what I'm telling. Now, where do you get the subnet information from? The subnet information, so you're actually getting it from VPC. So the VPC is already destroyed. I think I need to create it back. So from the VPC, you need to from the VPC you already created the subnets and all. It needs the subnet information. Okay, so I need to collect. So auto scaling group is actually going to scale the instances, and while scaling the instances, you should tell to the auto scaling group that, okay, hey, you use this subnet and this subnet. That means subnet is actually directly pointing to a availability zone. Okay, so you're telling your auto scaling group to scatter the instances between multiple availability zones. Okay, you have to tell to that which availability zones you are supposed to do, which availability zones you are supposed to use, and okay, so and based on those particular availability zones only, my auto scaling group will launch the instances. So that's a mandatory configuration for our auto scaling group basically. Okay, now subnets information is a mandatory information from auto scaling group. So but where is your auto scaling group? Where is your subnet? Subnets is created as a part of a separate module. Okay, now you need to find it out. How can you share the data between these two things? Okay, so now you need to find it out is this. Now what you need to do is you need to find it out. How can you so share the data between two things? So here you have a VPC Terraform module, and you have something called as so front end basically, right? So now you need to know that how do you share the data between them. Okay, so how do you share? So that's a question mark. Okay, so which you don't know so far, right? Yes, you can share that by using okay, a state file. So because this is using a common so state file, so state file in S3, right? So now what we're going to do is it actually storing the information over here, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take that information to here. Okay, we'll read this particular state file. Okay, we'll read state file. Okay, so how do you share the data is, so that is nothing but I'm going to read the state file and I'm going to call all the things, so here subnet is created. Okay, subnet is created. That subnet, whatever is created, it's stored in the state file as an information. Okay, I'm going to read that state file. Okay, but how to read? Question mark, right? So how do you read it is Terraform gives you a very simple flexibility, okay, by using outputs. The simple answer is by using, you're going to put some outputs in here. Okay, so write outputs from this, and actually you're going to do is read outputs. Okay, from you're going to write the output to the state file, and that outputs will be read by the from the state file by frontend. Okay, how do you do this? So let me show you this. Okay, so here we are actually going to go with we're actually going to go with a data source of a Terraform remote state file. Okay, so that's where I'm going to give that. So here I am going to make some you already have data.tf. So now another information I'm going to do is a Terraform remote state. You see this? And Terraform remote state. So which remote state you are referring? VPC remote state. Okay, and then backend is S3, right? And backend is equal to S3, and so I don't know how to keep it, but let's see. But let's refer to this Terraform remote state file S3 backend. So how do you do this? Some examples. Okay, backend is equal to S3 and config, yeah, and you just need to give config, yeah. So inside the config, what you are going to give is, so what all the things you should require, which you require here is backend. So what all the things which you have here, you require these things only. Okay, so DynamoDB table is not needed. DynamoDB is only about writing log, not reading log. Reading doesn't really require any logging. Okay, only while writing you require a log. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to have the state file information, and how do I get the state file? So this bucket name is also, I want to parameterize this. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to my make file and say that, hey, you're not only you're going to pick up only one file. Let's pick up var -file is equal to backend slash data.tf dev.tf as well. You pick this particular file also. Okay, while you're picking that file, these are all actually going to come as variables as well. So now that comes as a variable bucket. Variable bucket and variable bucket, and then variable what? Key and region. Okay, so variable key, variable region. Only this much is fine. That table is not needed. So yeah, and the same information should be going to here, auto scaling group. So actually, bucket is equal to var dot bucket, and key is equal to var dot key, and region is equal to var dot region. And the same variables you should be declaring it, inside this module as well, because you're calling it from the module. And so here you're going to know why I'm doing this. Yeah, right. So now here you're actually going to go and say that var dot bucket, okay, and actually going to be var dot. But actually you're referring the key, right? Even key also I don't need it. Okay, so key actually it's not a direct key. So key actually locally here is a front end. So front end you're referring inside the front end. That doesn't make sense. So that's where this needs to be little handled in this way only. So it's actually going to be a VPC, and the only thing is I will parameterize this variable var.env, that's it, and the region is var.region. Okay, so technically I don't require the key variable also. Key variable is not needed, and that's where here also key is not needed, and that's where here key is not needed. Okay, so fine. Okay, now you get the state file information. Okay, cool, you got it. Now how do you refer this here? Okay, so it is asking for some subnet information, right? So here how do you do that? If we just go up, VPC zone identifier, so is nothing but you're giving the two subnets. You're giving the two subnets. So here I'm going to say that here I'm going to go for VPC zone identifier is equal to the list of subnets. Okay, how do I get the subnets? First of all, I should go to the VPC and I want to send that information as the outputs, isn't it? So I will be going and saying that, so outputs.df. Okay, so variable, okay, so public underscore no, not variable, output public underscore subnets, and output private underscore subnets. Okay, how do you get this? AWS underscore subnet dot public subnets dot star.id, that's, and AWS underscore subnet dot private underscore subnets dot star.id, that's it. Okay, so these are the two outputs which are sending, and so those two outputs will be read from there. Okay, so how do you read them? So now the VPC should VPC should run. I think VPC should be already running because we mentioned auto trigger. So VPC already running. So now while it runs, actually it goes and stores into the state file. Okay, so the outputs goes and sits in the state file. And once after you have that information inside the state file, you will read it from there. So how do I read it? So come to the here. So now here I'm going to say that it is so data dot Terraform state file dot VPC dot okay VPC dot outputs dot. So wherever the instances should store all instances is actually going to be private underscore subnets, isn't it? So data remote state file VPC and collect the information from outputs. So outputs is a private subnets. Take the private subnets output. Okay, that's what you're actually telling here. Now, after this is successful, did we got the outputs? Yeah, now you're getting the outputs. Now these outputs will be collected from there. Let's go to front end data release. So Terraform apply. Now actually what it is telling, the block of configs are not expected here. So do you mean so config? If so, use equal sign. If so, use the equal sign to it a value. Okay, so that means what it is telling is data. You're not using equal to. Okay, it is telling that. Okay, so let me use equal to. Okay, cool. So your auto scaling group got created. So I think that minimal information is fine for us to create an auto scaling group. So let's go to the auto scaling group and find it out. Okay, so you have this, and it is using the template of dev template. Perfect. All right, and yeah, and the next thing is, so you created the auto scaling group, right? So the same thing is the same way you can create the auto scaling group for other components as well. Okay, so the other components are no, but actually, so if you see here, actually you're creating an auto scaling group, and this auto scaling group is using which image, my regular image, basically, right? My regular image of which doesn't have anything. So after I have a server, um, after I create a server, all I need to do is I need to run a shell script and make the I need to run a shell script and do it. Okay, so rather than actually creating a server and every time actually running the shell script, so the best way actually we should do here is we should be doing is create an image which create an image. So what I would say. Create an image with the appropriate component. Okay, so for a front end, create a front end image. For catalog image, and so like that, create an appropriate image, make the image okay, so make the image okay, make the appropriate component image and use that particular image. So that's what I would say. All right, so now I need to make an AMI first. Okay, without an AMI, I'll like let's say tomorrow I want to auto scale a new instance. A new instance will launch up, and at that point of time that script runs, and that script might go into a failure, and so that is the reason actually it will go into so it will go into a lot of operation cost. Okay, so I don't want to go into that strategy. My strategy is always so put as much as time on the development side. My operations should go in a very minimal time. So that's the strategy. Okay, so I am actually trying to make it. Okay, so for that I require an AMI for each and every component. So now I need to make an AMI. So for now I need to make an AMI for my front-end instance in order to actually launch the front end. So basically it has to be a front-end image. Is that point clear? So what we're actually trying to achieve is we should not use a generic image. We should use an appropriate image for that particular component. And this very strategy I'm using here is so immutability. So immutable infrastructure. So that means what I'm actually telling here. So immutable infrastructure refers to the server. Those are never modified after the deployment. If I deploy a server, I should never modify it. Okay, then what is the point of going and running my shell script there? No. Okay, it should come from the image. It should come from the image. Okay, so that's where we're actually going to create an AMI. Okay, so how to create an AMI? So create an AMI is very simple. So you create a server and you convert that particular server into an AMI. That's it. Okay, so you create one server manually. I think I already shown you, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think I already shown you. Yeah, so you already seen that how to create a server into an AMI, right? So you already seen that. Now the same way I'm actually going to create a server, set up inside that server, and then convert into an AMI. So back in days, so at least 10 years back or so we majorly used, at least I majorly use this particular tool called as packer.io. Okay, packer.io is again alternate tool from the same Terraform guys. So same from HashiCorp. You have so this utility for packing the images basically. Okay, but now I don't want to really go with this because that time Terraform doesn't have a support of making the images. So I need to go with the third-party tool. Now, since I'm already running everything on the Terraform, so there is no point in going to another tool again, because that also supports. So that also that also supports, so there is no point in going into the third-party tool. Okay, if it's not there, then I should have definitely, but yeah, I cannot actually go here. I don't want to go here. Why? Because my Terraform supports that. Okay, it's been a year, so you can confidently say in the market as well. So we're creating AMIs with Terraform, so it's possible, and we're doing it. Yes, of course, I can do that as well. Okay, so I will go and do this now. Right? So yeah, and here, how can I create an AMI? So pretty simple, and the AMI is quite common again. It's AMI is not only for front end. AMI is required for my catalog, cart, so user, shipping, all these particular components. Okay, I will be going with the AMI. So that's where I want to make it generic again, like something like ASG. I want to make it very generic. So how can I make it generic? Making a module basically. And I mean module or separate code basically. Here it is. So for AMI, Terra AMI. All right. So here I want to put an AMI. So in order to put an AMI, so the same process, however you did it manually in the Terraform, also you're going to do the same thing. And so in the Terraform, in the manual, what you do, you create one server, you set up all the steps, and then convert that server into AMI, and then delete the server. The same steps I'm going to follow here as well. Okay, there's absolutely no difference. Okay, so Terraform AMI. And over here, so I'm going to say new file, which is instance.df. So I'm going to make, resource AWS underscore instance the same way. Okay, AMI hyphen or underscore anything is fine. AMI underscore instance, and the AMI would be coming from the data only. Okay, you're going to take the generic, that one here, data, this one. You're going to take this. You're going to take this and come to here. So you're actually going to take is a data dot this one AMI dot ID. Okay, so instance is basically, I can go for t3 dot small, anything is fine, just to make it faster. So t3 small. Okay, and I'll create an instance. First step, I create my instance. So I'll also put some tags so that I'll have some clarity what instance I'm launching. So I'm launching an instance, so which is name is equal to name is equal to var, sorry, name is equal to $var.component hyphen yeah. Okay, so to creating this particular var component AMI, I'm actually making this instance. Okay, and so this variable is now there, and I'll just say that you can put everything in one file. I already told you about this, right? So you can put everything, dump in one file, no problem. But so organizing will become hectic. Okay, so that's where okay, this one, and the next one, there is a component, right? Okay, so this is the instance which we are going to make it. Okay, after making the instance, so what I have to do is I have to go and use some provisioner and run the shell script of a front end. Okay, so here I'm actually going to deal with resource. There's some resource called as null underscore resource, and there's an advantage. Actually, I'm going with this particular one. What is the advantages? So the advantages is so like let's say first thing is your instance creation will be is a separate piece, and your provisioner is going to be a separate piece. If I keep the provisioner here itself, so then there is certain problems come into picture. What is the problem? Like let's say if I want to use the same server, but I want to update the provisioner, it will not work. Okay, it's only run for one time. That's it. It creates the instance and that's it. It really never bother about you change some provisioner code. It never bothers about that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, okay, so even though you have a problem with the provisioner, okay, so what actually your resource will consider, if there is a failure in the provisioner, your whole resource is going to be considered as a failure. And always Terraform will try to go and recreate the instances again and again, again and again. Okay, there are two problems actually which using the provisioner in resource. One problem is if provisioner failed with some exit status, some other failure, your resource also will consider as a failure by Terraform. That actually clearly given in the Terraform documentation. I'm not sure. I think I already shown you that also, provisioner in Terraform. Even that point also I have shown provisioner. Yeah, so in the creation time, provisioner fails, then the resource is marked as tainted. Okay, that means also a failure. Tainted resource will be planned for destruction and recreation upon the Terraform apply once again. This is the problem. Okay, so that is the problem. Okay, so that's how I want to go with so provisioner keeping in separate, and there is separate resource called as null underscore resource. This null resource will help us in doing nothing. Okay, it doesn't does anything. Okay, but I can go and put some provisions inside that. Okay, so yeah, my let's say so provisioner. So I put any name is okay. So now here I want to go with a provisioner, and I want to do what? I want to do a remote exec. Remote exec means what? It actually executes the commands inside remote server. Okay, then I want to make a connection. So what is the connection I want to make? Host. Okay, so what is the host? A host is actually going to be AWS instance dot ami dot public underscore IP. I want to connect with public IP, and I want to user which is root, and I want to use a password which is DevOps 321. And actually, okay, so hard coding the username and password is not a great idea. Recommend. So hard coding the username and password in code is the worst idea, and it causes security breaches as well. So I cannot actually keep it my username and password in a plain text. Okay, so I need to consider this in a better way, but we'll do that later. Okay, that time I'll remove this comment as well. Okay, we'll do that in a better way, and how to do that we'll see. And but for now, so host is equal to this. Okay, the connection you are making, and the user is equal to this, and the password is equal to this. So using this, you can make a connection. Okay, provisioner, and the provisioner you are using remote exec, right? So if you are using remote exec, so I close the documentation now. Yeah, if you are using local exec or remote exec, remote -exec, and how do you provide the commands is remote exec inline is equal to, and in the list of things you have to execute the command. Okay, so first thing first, what I want to do is I'm connecting. I'll be into the system, and once after I'm inside the system, so I have to go with the git clone. Where is my or even before to that, we are actually missing the make command. Okay, so what I'm going to do is install make. Why? Okay, first command will be it will install, and the second thing install make, and after that I need to clone the shell scripting repository. And I'll go and say clone this. So then what you can do is you can just go for git space clone space this one, and after that what you can do is and cd shell hyphen scripting directory and a slash. So what is the directory we are preferring to go inside? roboshop hyphen project. So roboshop hyphen project, and actually it's gonna be said that you have to run the command make space. Since I'm connecting as a root user, I know to give sudo also. Okay, make space. So the component. So where is the component? The component comes from the variable. Okay, so this is the var.component. Okay, so this is what is going to happen because I want to make it generic, right? So if I run it for front end, it should work. If I run it for catalog, it should work. For every component, it should work. Okay, so that's where I'm actually putting the variable. All right. So this much is fine, and I want to make my Terraform code. Okay, and while making the Terraform code, actually it doesn't have any kind of a state file information or something like that. So I want to make the state information. So the state information should be coming something like this. Okay, I will just use remote state. Or yeah, actually, you know, to give the state file here also, yeah, that's fine. Let's not make it complex at this point of time. So let me take it in a plain way. So put the state file here and the state file here and backend. So this is the one, and I will say that, you know, it's a front end. It's actually going to be an AMI. Okay, it's not front end, I would say. Let's keep it as AMI. You know, so AMI, that's it. Okay, this much is fine. Okay, so one state file I'm preferring, but this is going to definitely cause some problems later. We'll solve the problems later. Okay, so there is something, a thesis basically in in the development. Okay, so I mean in the development, in the sense, while you make some work, basically there is some, you know, so kind of a what we call some kind of standard practices people follow. Okay, I would say that way, standard practices. And what is that? One of the practices, okay, so don't think until you reach there. Don't think until you reach there. Don't think until you reach there. Okay, so there is a exact phrase actually. Don't think until you reach. It's not inspirational quote actually. It's actually a development code. And so developer, and then it is actually which is related to what is that? Bridge. Okay, something else. Actually, there is an exact word we can make it, but something we are getting. Some cartoons you will get it usually. So now let's say, you know, so like let's say there is a broken bridge. Okay, so something like this. Okay, where is this bridge? Yeah. So this is a broken bridge, and actually you will not actually, you know, so you will not actually start from home because of there is a broken bridge, right? So generally, you know, assume that you don't know that. Okay, you assume that that's a broken might be, but you will not stop. But you have to move. Eventually, you have to move, right? You will not moving means you're not doing development, isn't it? So people talk about this particular thing. So don't actually think too much. Okay, about that. Okay, so don't think about too much. And at the starting phase, you think about something will break at the later. Okay, let's take it at later time. But don't actually spend a lot of time at this point of time. At this point of time, you move on with the, you know, the required things. Okay, so that is one of the, you know, so developer in the developments, basically the development space, people talk about this particular words usually. Okay, so now I know that this will definitely break later time, but we are dealing with not later time, right? So we're dealing with the current situation. Let's deal with the current situation. If you know that immediate fix, what you can do, but we are learners here. I'm with you, right? So actually I can, if I put a lot of that strategy also, you will know, we'll go scenario by scenario. We're going scenario by scenario, we'll go that way only. Okay, let's not put too many things at this point of time. So certain things are important while you do the things. Okay, this is one of the decent thing we always talk about usually. Okay, now coming back to this. So yeah, at this point of time you're using a single state file, and how can we make it for other AMIs? We'll think about that later. It will definitely fail. Okay, we'll work on that later, but for now it is okay. We're working on only on the front end. Let the front end happen. I'm fine with that. Okay, now this is the scenario and I want to run this. Okay, so how do I run this? So basically it's actually going to be easy. Make file, I can make it. So make this production, you don't require an AMI. Why you don't require an AMI? I'll talk about that. So here also I'll just make init. That's it, apply, and let's try. I don't really make it. And these TF-vars are also not there, and TF-vars is not there, and even backend config is also not there. So simple commands are actually here. Okay, let's not make too complex. Now, where do I make the AMI? In the front end pipeline, I need to make the AMI. So I'll go to the front end. So there is already releases. Edit. So now before to this, I want to add a new stage, and that stage is actually an empty. And I want to say that it's actually going to be an AMI. Okay, I want to make an AMI from here. All right. Okay. So I will just go inside this. I'll choose an agent as Ubuntu 20. Save it. Go back to the pipeline, and this Terraform should always run after my stage. My stage is AMI stage. After AMI only, if you run your so front end, if you have the AMI, then only this will run, right? So that's the idea. And you go to the AMI, so and you say that Terraform tool installer, and the tool is actually going to be 14.3. And after that, I need to go for a bash. Make space apply. All right, and this should be doing this should be doing inside the code. So not front end. I will just add Azure repos T3, and I will say AMI. So go inside bash script. So this should run inside AMI. Okay, I will choose AMI. Okay, done. And also it requires environment variables, which is Amazon AWS environment variables. Okay. Okay, pipeline, you have variables already grouped in, right? So the scope is the release, means all the stages can access it. Now let's go and create a release. Okay, so you create an AMI, you just click on AMI. So let's see whether that provisioner is really working or not. So there is some failure. What is the failure? Is commas are missing. Okay, so here I am missing a comma. Okay, comma is missing. More release. Hey, sorry, I didn't observe this. So there is a var.component, and this var.component is actually not passed. Okay, so that's where it's actually holding. Yeah, we didn't hard coded any of the var dot this one, and even the AWS region also is actually something is. So that's where I will say that, so here provider AWS region US -east to -1. Okay, done. And the second thing is here this component is not there. So this component I would like to prefer to pass it from the pipeline only. Okay, so why? Because I don't want to hard code the so component, because the AMI I want to make it very generic, and so that is where I want to send it from here. How can you send it from here? So you have some environment variables already passing. So you can send some shell environment variable by using tf_var, right? We already talked about this, and it is a component, and I'll say this as, and that's it. It might fail now. The reason you'll see, because of the you canceled a previous job, it might have created a lock. Okay, it didn't created a lock. Cool. So now it is creating an instance, and after the instance creation, it's gonna run the shell script. So after that, the provisioner is coming into picture. The provisioner is actually trying to connect to the public host, but it cannot connect actually. Why it cannot connect? Because the security group is not there. So first of all, this instance is created and the security group is not there. So you can just see this. Now the instance came up, which is fine. So the instance came up, but if you see the security group, so security group, it is picking up default, and default doesn't have any ports open. Okay, it doesn't have any ports open to the public, and that is where the problem comes into picture. Okay, so now we need to sort out the security group, and then we should make it correct. So but until then, yeah, so it will take some time to fail. Almost 10 minutes it will run and fail. Let it fail. So probably in tomorrow's session we'll take a look of how can we create the AMI along with the security group. We just open the ports and create the security group, and then yeah, the rest of the things we'll see it in tomorrow's session. Okay, and that's all from my side for today. Any questions?
I'm unable to open this Azure DevOps, so I'm unable to access it. So
Yeah, you have been provided some access. If you log in with your your email address only, then only it will open.
yeah, I have logged in with my email address, but it was saying your password was incorrect. So actually, first I have redirected to my Office Microsoft account, but I have used another account. So and I have opened in incognito mode as well. So it was saying asking me to reset your password.
Yeah, if you are using your office laptops, which is having the so I mean, like Microsoft account, I see some problems definitely will come. I would prefer you to use another system if you have possibly, or else so when you logging in, so rather than actually using, I mean, your direct username and password, I'll prefer you to use your GitHub authentication. That's what I told you, right? So your Azure DevOps has a GitHub authentication. If you go there, and now if you just click on sign in, so there is a multiple options it will show. So which you choose GitHub. So if you just use your email address, something your local account will come into some existence. So that's where go with the sign in with GitHub only. Then
Okay,
the thing.
okay.
Okay, give a try on this. It should.
Sure, Raghu. Thank you. I'll try today.
Yeah. Anyone? Any other questions? All right. Okay. So if no questions, we'll meet in tomorrow's session, and we'll continue that AMI part and the rest of the things, whatever we have. Okay. Thank you, and see you tomorrow. Bye.